The purpose of this screencast is to help guide you through what's required for option B, where you're exploring the geography of wellbeing. You have this screencast to guide you. You also have the written instructions to guide you, as well as obviously your teachers that are in the room with you throughout the 20 hours. Just a reminder, this is weeks 1 and 2. There's 40 hours available altogether. You have 2 tasks to do for the why, which is what this is. Why do we need a wellbeing and mental health focus for our event? And the how, which is the actual proposal. So they're both due at the end of week 2. You have the opportunity to move between the why task and the how task. You choose how you manage your time, but make sure you manage it accordingly so you get everything done, complete and ready for the end of week 2. So remember for this too, the why task, why do we need an event that helps support mental health and wellbeing? There's 3 options, A, B, and C. This is option B. You only pick one of those and you do your research, write up and report for one of the 3 options, ideally picking one that you find the most interest in. So the learning intention for option B is to learn about the link between your home location and overall wellbeing. And to be successful, you should be able to identify facilities and services in your area linked to wellbeing, and you can link the availability of those services to wellbeing of individuals within an area. So your final 4 goals, you need to make a digital map that shows the location of various facilities and services for mental health and wellbeing. You need to use data. So you can either create data or you can find data online, analyze it, present it, and check it for accuracy. So you do some basic mathematics there. You need to write your report, which will include those 2 key elements as well as an introduction. And saving your links. So any website, any book, anything that you use to gather information, you must write it down, record it, so you can list it in your references. Now, you've got a broad timeline. This is also available in the written instructions. It's listed here as a range of stops or stages. You can decide what you want to call them. But these times are approximate. So the first one is to unpack and explore what the actual report needs. So you pull apart, there's a sentence starter in there to help guide you in your written instructions. You pull it apart and work out, what do I need to include? How am I going to work through it? What steps do I need to take? You've got a couple of hours available for that initial planning. So make sure you use that time. Step 2, which we're going to walk you through, is actually doing the research. So researching what sorts of facilities are we talking about? Where do we find those? How does that compare to other areas in Australia? And so on. For our area or a chosen area, you need to map out the location of these various facilities on an actual map. We'll talk about that when we get up to it. You'll also look at a couple of options around gathering data and using some basic mathematics to pull that apart and make sure that it's accurate. And whichever report you do, there's always some maths built into it. Step 5, you do some analysis in terms of how does where you live affect your overall well-being, and is it linked to the number of health and well-being resources in that area? So in other words, are people that have a lot of green areas for walking and recreation, a lot of sporting clubs, a lot of healthcare facilities, a lot of GPs, they have a lot of psychologists and other mental health professionals. Do they have better mental health? The same? Worse? So is there a link? So that's the analysis. And all of that work means that you're ready to write the report. So you do that research and you make a draft and get all these notes down. Then you put it together into one combined report. The last couple of hours, we recommend proofreading. Dot I's, cross T's, make sure there's capital letters, there's proper punctuation, there's no spelling mistakes. That's an important step. You've got a couple of hours. Use it. If it's not well written, we will ask you to fix it. So you may as well use the 2 hours that's provided, do it once and do it right. These times are approximate. You might not need as much time to plan step 1. You might only need an hour. That might give you an extra hour to do the analysis. It's currently listed as 3 hours. You might find that takes you longer, so you need 4. That's okay. You've got 20 hours in total, 40 hours across the 2 weeks to do this and your proposal. Use those 40 hours and mix it up. You're not expected to do the full 20 hours in a row on this. You might do some research for an hour, maybe two. Then you might start working on your proposal and then come back to it later. That's okay, as long as you're getting everything done. So be organized, manage your time. There are keywords that you need to know and understand. So these are some basic definitions, but we don't just want definitions. There needs to be something, they need to be a definition you get that you can explain that you understand. So in your written instructions, this is the same basic definitions as in your written instructions, but these are some keywords that you'll need to actually know in order to understand what it is that you're doing. So have a look at those, make sure you know them. That is all part of stage one. So stage 1 and 2. Stage 1 is about your initial planning, mapping out what you need to do. Stage 2, you need to start researching what is it that makes people feel good? What helps people's well-being get better? Does location mean that you have better or worse access to some of those things? And if we're talking about Numurkah, how does Numurkah compare with the rest of Australia in terms of accessibility to some of those things? So that's where you start doing your research. Find out what sorts of things people need and benefit from. What um, what do we have in our location? If you live in Katunga instead of Numurkah, does that mean that you miss out, for example? And then the big picture. Make sure you take notes. There is a template in your written instructions to help guide you through that. Your notes need to be in your own words. It's not about copy and paste. Copy and paste doesn't show that you understand anything, and it leads to plagiarism, which leads to, well, doing your report again. So write your notes in your own words, but don't forget, make sure you keep the website or whatever reference you used, because you'll need to include that in your final report. Once you've got an idea of what people need for well-being, you're going to map them out on a map. There's a couple of different online tools that we recommend that you can use to do this. So have a look at that and have a play with those, and you might find that that's pretty easy. So you'll get a map if you're doing Numurkah of Numurkah. Now, when you think about well-being, remember it's not just, oh, there's a doctor or a psychologist. It's also connection with nature is positive, has a positive effect on well-being. So are there any natural spaces that people can go out and enjoy? Is there outdoor sports equipment? Is there indoor sports equipment in a gym? Map all of those things out, make it as detailed and in-depth as you possibly can, because down the track you want to compare Numurkah to the rest of Australia and see if there's a difference in the data. On your map, make sure that you clearly label what each of the things are. You might use different colors. So this is for an outdoor natural facility. This is for a GP or a medical clinic. So green for natural, blue for a clinic, whatever. But you might want to use colors, but make sure they're clearly labeled and make sure you add a description. You've got a few hours to do that, so do it thoroughly and do it well. Again, this is an example of some of the things you might put on there: green spaces, medical services, community spaces like sports clubs. Sports clubs are well known for being important for health and well-being, but there's probably others. If you're a religious person, church might count as that, right? So now, whether that applies to you or not, it's the same as a sports club. Not everybody plays footy, basketball, netball. Not everybody goes to church, but it doesn't mean it's not something that's available to help people's health and well-being. So think about the sorts of things you need to include carefully. Now, for your maths, you might choose to do a count. So you count up all the various services. You might work out how far someone has to travel to get to each of those services. So that's using percentages, that's using maths. You may choose to show your data in graphs. So if you think about those three categories, just going back one slide, what percentage of our wellbeing services or facilities are green spaces? What percentage are medical? What percentage are community? And you can represent that in something like a pie chart. Have a think about what data you've got, what data you can collect or have collected, and how you will present it. Just be careful with your data that there's no bias in there or that it's not missing anything. And make sure you think about ways you can make your data better the whole way through. Once you've done all that research, it's starting to put all your pieces together. So you want to write down 5 questions about your local area and use your map to help answer them. Again, step-by-step guide written up in the written instructions to help you through that, but use evidence and the data to answer the questions. Your big comparison. So when you look at our area, how do we compare to the rest of Australia? Are we about the same? Is there a difference? Why might there be a difference? And does that lead to a change in overall well-being of the residents in that area? So that's the big piece of the puzzle that will require a bit of work and effort to research and find out. Again, if you're not sure where to look, ask for help, but also think independently because that's the goal behind this project. Now, once you've done all that, you're ready to build your report. Your report has sections. You'll do an introduction. You'll outline your research. So talk about what you found out in terms of what facilities people need, how available they are. Put your map in so that you can refer to your map. Analyze your data, present your data. So there's your maths. Your overall analysis of our area and those 5 inquiry questions and answer them with evidence. The comparison between our area and the rest of Australia, any recommendations that come out of that, and a conclusion. And don't forget your references. So all that work you've done means that this report you should be able to put together within a few hours because you've already done all of the hard work. You just need to write it up. And again, that last couple of hours, read it, reread it, make sure that there's no spelling mistakes, make sure that you've got your grammar nice and sorted, make this report as good as you can. Because if not, we will ask you to go and fix it. So use your checklist. There's a written checklist in the actual written instructions as well. But have you got your digital map? Have you included it in your report? Have you included some maths and data analysis with a graph or some other representation? Yes, you have. Great. Have you written up your full report with your references? Cool. Submit it and you're done. So again, you only need to pick one of the 3 options. Option A, this one being option B, or there's option C where you look at community and community groups and health and wellbeing. So pick one of these, use this screencast as a resource to help you, use the written instruction as a resource to help you, use your teachers as a resource to help you, and we look forward to seeing what you can come up with.